Alright, if you've missed part 1, I will link it at the end of this video, and that will explain background noises and excuse how I look. But I left off to where I went and picked up my children from school, and my daughter was crying, said that her head hurt and her ear hurt. Now, we had been thinking about homeschooling anyway because of, Alex couldn't get the advanced schooling that he needed. My sister-in-law had been homeschooling, and I started doing research and started getting information, about homeschooling laws and the rules and the regulations and curriculum and all kind of that. I then started getting into some of that. And so when I went and picked up my children, now my daughter, my best friend, her daughter was in my daughter's class, and they were best friends. And even we would watch them, like Nikki and her friend, they would always play together, and they was always together. They was the best of friends. When it was my turn to go pick them up from school, sometimes when I'd go do shopping or whatever, I remember going to Target, and I bought them each a baby doll, and they just had the best time together. And it was always the same, wish they would kind of talk more. They was real shy and stuff, but so it wasn't just me saying that, and I'd already known what was going on in the lunchroom. And so before I get back to my daughter, we'd done been talking to the secretary about it, whom we all loved. Even at PTA meetings, when they would announce her, we would all cheer. So she would come in there and start sitting around and watching and taking notes and stuff. And because I was having lunch with my son, and she came and sat by me, and she was talking and noticing things too. So I picked my daughter up. She was crying, her head hurt and her ear hurt, and I'm like, what's wrong? And so she told me that during lunch, she was not the one talking, that someone beside her was, and the lunchroom lady, the lunchroom monitor came, got in my daughter's ear, and as loud as she could, screamed in her ear for her to shut up. Now, Nikki's best friend saw it, some other people saw it, some other parents saw it. I was furious. Number one, you don't mess with my kids. That is something that I will go crazy over. You do not mess with my kids. So I immediately took her to our pediatrician, told them what had happened, and they checked, and it did a little damage to Nikki's eardrum. And the doctor was furious and wrote a long note to the school board, to the principal. The school board was furious. I was fit to be tied. And so the next day at school, I show up with my letters and everything, and I'm like, I'm about to go off, And the principal didn't want to do nothing about it. So I can remember after that, my children, for the few days that they were there, I was there constantly. Well, come to find out, I found out one day on the way home, and I had my friend's kids with me. It was my week to pick up and do the carpooling. I found where the lunchroom monitor lived, and come to find out, it was in my neighborhood. My neighborhood's pretty big. There's several roads, and it was on the other street. And I had my best friend on the phone. I said, guess where I found where Miss, it wasn't a nice name, lived. And I'm like, I'm parking the car. I'm going to drop the kids off by the house, and I'm parking the car. And she kept saying, Cricket, it ain't worth it, it ain't worth it, it ain't worth it. I know they're not going to do nothing about it. It ain't worth it. Just please calm down, And she was right. It was not worth it. But they weren't going to do nothing. So I'm like, okay, I've already been checking into it, and this is the straw that broke the camel's back. They're not going back. my husband went up the next day, you know, and the secretary, she's like, I know why you're here. And you're pulling them from school. And she says, and we wasn't the only ones that started pulling our kids from that school because of the principal and because of situations. A lot of families were pulling their kids from that school. And a lot of them started homeschooling and stuff. And because remember, I knew a lot of these people, and they just was tired of it. You know, you couldn't get nothing done. The principal thought she could do no wrong. Her husband was over the superintendent of schools, so we were just kind of stuck. And this was in April, and they would have gotten out the end of May. So we went and took them out of school officially and went and picked up our packet and everything. And so through April and May, I kind of unschooled them, is what you call it. You just kind of unschool them. We still did schoolwork, but just kind of getting them kind of out of that routine and into what's going to be our new routine. And so my son's room down in the basement now turned into our classroom. I have a real slate chalkboard. My best friend, her husband, they was demolishing one school, and he got a hold of a couple of real slate chalkboards, and I love chalkboards. I want to try to move it upstairs to my kitchen. But I have that downstairs, and we did a cheap version of a dry erase board. My husband bought and it's some kind of a shower board or whatever. It's all what dry erase board was, but you know, got a big old 8x8 sheet of it that was in our other room of the basement. And we had gotten hold of a big old bulletin board that at his work they was getting rid of. And we found, someone called me, found a place that was having a yard sale, and they was getting rid of their old desk and teacher's desk for new. So we were able to go get 4 school desks and a teacher's desk for hardly nothing. And it was the table desk. The desk, well, it's what this is actually sitting on that has the under here, and they had their little chairs and stuff. So that turned into our classroom. And I kind of at first wanted to keep the same like math curriculum. They was doing Saxon math. So you could order set curriculums, or you could mix and match. And so I kept the Saxon math going, because remember, Nikki's just in first grade now, so we kind of kept that going with her and bought all the manipulatives that goes with it. Me and my sister-in-law met up at the school box store, you know, for school supplies, and we bought all the manipulatives and stuff that they needed and went in together and just shared it all. And a lot of the books and stuff that I bought, you could go on used books for homeschooling and stuff and buy them pretty cheap. And I made my kids take care of their books, so therefore we could pass them down. Well, first of all, Alex would have to pass his down to Nikki. But, you know, we could sell and stuff. And we did change a lot of curriculums and everything, but then it was where we lived, we had to do attendance reports every month, and my kids had the standardized testing where you could either take them to the school or someone would come in and monitor and give the test. And I had that on file, and I did everything according to what the state law regulates, and I still have all the paperwork and file cabinets downstairs, and I still have some school books and everything. And I know people who's going to be homeschooling now are going to start homeschooling that I've seen them post, and I'm going to contact them to see if they would like some of the manipulatives and everything that I still have, you know, just pass it on down and everything. But it was a joy, and I did homeschool my my sister's kids, my nephews, because she traveled and stuff, and we could do that because we were certified to do that. And even for a while, Well, like, I remember when we was learning about caves and stuff, we went on field trips. So we planned a little trip to go up to Chattanooga where they had this cave up near there. I think it's called Raccoon Caverns or something. Caves kind of scare me because, you know, you're down under the ground and just enclosed. But we went to this cave, and the man that was giving the tour, you know, announced who he was and started asking questions. Well, my son answered all of his questions correctly. You know, what is this called? This is a stalactite. And he goes, well, do you know what it does? And Alex explained to him stalactites, stalagmites, everything about it at such a young age that he was so amazed at it that he asked Alex to come up and help give the guide. And he would point things out. And like my kids knew it, you know, Nikki knew it, Brayden knew it, Mitchell knew it. And stuff, so, you know, I'm walking around, yes, those are my children, you know, kind of got the big head. But it let me knew I was doing something right. And I still have film of that because my nephew, if you've watched my videos, you know there was always a video camera on. And they love to video too. Kind of make you sick watching them because, you know, it ain't crooked, it ain't crooked, it ain't crooked. But at least I still have all of that on memory. If I find them, I might put them on one of these videos. I don't know. But that was something that we were able to do. And I remember we was studying Pompeii. And that's when a show was going to come out that talked about Pompeii. And I thought it was going to be more educational. But it wasn't going to come on till like 10 o'clock that night. Well, that was way past my kids and my nephew's bedtime. So I'm like, we're just gonna, the night it comes on, we was so excited. I had the kids all take a nap. We're gonna sit up, we're gonna have our notebooks, we're gonna curl up and in our pajamas and our blankets and our hot chocolates, and we're gonna watch, they're gonna learn more on Pompeii. That show was so sad. Not only was I crying at the end of it, they were all crying at the end of it. It actually talked about as if you were there living there, so it just explained what happened and how, not the educational part of it that I thought it was going to be. And they'll still talk about that to this day. But I enjoyed it. Now, what we did, a lot of people would make it their business, oh, your kid's going to miss out on this. Well, I would just say thank you for your interest. You know, but it is my family, and it is my children. So you worry about yours, I will worry about mine. They didn't miss out on nothing, you know, and we still had a school routine going. Oh, well, I bet y'all just sleep in all day. No, because in life, you can't sleep in all day. I wanted my kids to know, you know, you're going to grow up and then there's going to be a job. You just can't sleep in all day and just, you know, do your job whenever. So they still had set bedtimes. They still had a set time that they had to be up. We started school every morning at 8 a.m. They still may be in their pajamas for the first, you know, hour of it. But we still had a routine going. We had lunchtime. My kids were always on a schedule anyway. And because one day my husband, when he was off for a few years, he goes, how come every day around 11:30 all of y'all get hungry? That was our set lunchtime. I was a very scheduled type person, and that's the way we did things, was by schedule. And then we had a set time that school was over, and it was just wonderful. And when I had my very first foot surgery, every day, and I couldn't go up down the steps, so I had my nephew and my son. They'd bring up the big fold-out table. They'd bring up school books, and we had school up here. And they loved it. My husband's brother, who is passed away, he was going to actually be a teacher, and he was actually in college to be a teacher. And remember, I have a lot of doctor's appointments and stuff, and so he would come over, and he loved it. They loved it when their Uncle Ben taught them for the day. You know, he would actually take them outside, and they would just do experiments, and the things that he was learning that he would have to kind of, work with children on, he would actually come over here. He'd call, "Can I come teach school for you today?" And they loved it, and it was fun. And there was no, "Oh, we're not having school today for me to go shopping." No, we didn't do that. And I didn't even want to be out. Now, if they had doctor's appointments or something and we would stop by somewhere, I always had a note in my purse stating that they were homeschooled, by the school board. Just run up to the Board of Education and get your copy of it. And so my kids actually graduated together. And the way that I wanted it to be, where they passed all their standardized testing and everything, that still was not good enough for me. I wanted them to actually go enroll in adult education and actually take the state test, and then they had graduation for people who do that. And so they actually did that, was able to graduate together. And I will post some of those pictures or video or whatever at the end. And it was just a proud mama moment. We had him a big graduation party. And my son he took some years off. He didn't want to go. He was tired of school. And my daughter took like a year off. And now she's going back to school, back to college to be a nurse. And he's going to go enroll next semester. Because there's some things, he's a computer, what I call computer and gaming genius. He was even working on developing his own games and stuff. He's amazing. So, but we loved it, and it was an adventure, and it's the adventure that I love and I do not regret. And my kids didn't miss out on nothing, and they're very well loved in the community and even in their jobs. Like, "Oh, I don't feel good today." "Well, I'm sorry, you still got to go to work. Unless you are very contagious and whatever, I might allow you to stay at home. But if you stay at home, sick enough to stay at home, then maybe you might need to go to the doctor," that type of thing. And I was very strict. I was a very strict parent, but an aunt, because I did help raise my sister's kids. But we had a good time. And I know this is probably gone way, way over my time limit, but, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer them the best that I could. I know that I hated doing attendance forms every month. Oh, I just don't know why I hated doing it. And the year that I didn't have to do it no more, when my daughter turned 16, our state law changed and they stopped attendance forms. I'm like, really? But we had a great time, and it was time that I would not take away. My kids still had their friends, and they still got to do everything that others did. We pretty much followed our county's schedule. If they were out, for spring break, then we would be out for spring break so they could go off and do things with their friends. So we pretty much followed that and everything. But yeah, it was a great time. So anyway, if you've missed part 1, I will link it, and it's probably going to show right now. And I appreciate y'all watching, and I'm sorry if this is so long. And leave me your comments. I love hearing from you. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And until my next video, I hope you enjoy. Bye, y'all.